Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. This is episode 8 of the current Grand Arena Championship 3, which means that we are in the semifinals of our current group. And, I did win my last round, and my opponent wasn't really much to write home about, to be honest, but this is actually a really exciting match, and I'm really excited to show you guys all the different matchups. I'm using a few different teams. I have a rematch of sorts here, and I'll explain that all in just a minute. The rematch that I'm referencing is not against this player. Molly Liza Jim could be literally anyone. I have no idea, but as far as I know, I haven't faced them. But what I'm talking about is General Skywalker at Relic 7 with a really strong supporting cast. As a lot of you have observed, in my last match against Relic 7 General Skywalker, I did not fare so well. It took me 4 different teams to get through him, and it was finally like Rogue One that got me out of that mess. And, it didn't actually get me out of the mess. I lost because of General Skywalker, and so, I have the opportunity to redeem myself. Let's see if I'm actually capable of that. As always, before a match, I really like to look at the stats because it puts everything in a little bit more context. In this case, my opponent had less GP than I did, but they had more Tier 7 relics, which is pretty significant in some ways. Tier 6, they have 1 more, they have 2 more Tier 7, so they have a couple characters that are significantly better than my own counterparts to those. And when you look at this sheet, you can see that they have fewer Zetas and honestly fewer gear and less mods. So I have the advantage in mods and gear and Zetas, and they have the advantage in relics, which means we're pretty even. We're basically even here. I'd say my advantage here is bigger in some ways just because I have more wins in Grand Arena. You can see that stat there, but at the end of the day, my opponent is going to have a General Skywalker team on defense, and that's going to mean a lot. Like, I probably am not going to be able to one-shot General Skywalker at Relic 7 at this point, and so there's kind of a built-in loss, like a built-in 20-point deficit. So, I was really hoping that my opponent would actually not place General Skywalker on defense, and, they were smart, and they actually put it in the right zone, the correct zone, and I was really disappointed in that, but I needed to jump in and just see what I could do. So going into this match, I had done a lot of upgrading of various characters and a lot of testing for different teams just to be able to have a counter, because after my big meltdown in the finals last round, I was determined not to let that happen again. And so my conclusion, actually, I wanted to work. I've been working on Commander Luke as a counter, but they weren't quite ready. And my team that's shown the most success in being able to actually take out a lot of these, at least the support characters for General Skywalker, is my Padme team. Now, 3PO he's not even Gear 13 yet, but I do have a Gear 13 on all the rest of them. And General Kenobi's a Relic 5. Skywalker, or Anakin, whatever, he's at Relic 7, and so, I have some decent Relic levels, like Padme's at Relic 4. It's not quite enough for me to really be able to expect a win here. My opponent's team was actually extremely well modded. Like, it was really going to be tough to take this down. But I did manage to survive the first barrage of attacks, and that's always good. And I actually had enough courage on Padme to be able to just one-shot 5s, which is always nice. And so now I'm just trying to take out all of these support characters before Skywalker gets another turn. And, looking at his protection, he regenerates 10% every single time a character takes a turn. And so, it was just kind of a countdown. I was able to take most of them out, though, and Ahsoka did stay alive, of course, but, Skywalker stood back up and promptly killed R2-D2. And so all I'm really trying to do here is just survive and, make sure that he sits down one more time. And then we want to take out Ahsoka. After I take out Ahsoka, my hope is that I'll be able to take out Skywalker and have a bunch of stacks of courage. The only problem with that is, of course, that I don't really have any stacks of courage to be able to do that, and he's starting to hit like a truck. So Kenobi actually had 18. Like, he might have been able to take Skywalker out here, but didn't really work. And so I did the AoE from Anakin, and I think that might have been a mistake. Probably should have just been a basic, just because he could have debuffed him some. But as it stands, I got taken out there, just totally wrecked by Skywalker. But he didn't have any protection left. He didn't have any support staff left. He was just kind of all on his own, and that is a dramatic change from what I've done in the past. And I actually can win about 1/3 of my matches in my testing against General Skywalker with that composition with R2 and 3PO there as the 4th and 5th members. But that's an exciting counter coming up, and it'll only get better as I add relic levels, which I intend to be doing. So in this next match, though, I wanted to make sure that I was able to take Skywalker out with no problems, because my opponent had already been gifted 20 banners, essentially, because I wasn't able to one-shot that team. And so I know that this seems like overkill, and it absolutely is, but the fact of the matter is I was already in a 20-point deficit. Like, that was already going to be really hard to overcome, and my opponent's offensive stats were pretty good long term. Like, they'd been able to clear most of their opponents, and so I needed to make sure that I gave myself every opportunity to win. And after looking at their defenses and everything for a little bit, I decided that I could afford to use my Commander Luke team here. So, get an undersized win, hopefully, and come out ahead. So that's what I did. I jumped into the fight, and it was immediately apparent that General Skywalker stood no chance against my amazing team.
In the words of my generation, up yours!
I was pretty excited to be able to take him out this quick and easy, and 40 banners. I mean, normally I would be pretty angry about 40 banners, but in this case, 40 banners is great. That's ideal against this team until I actually have a one-shot attempt to be able to beat him. And so beat him, and I immediately jumped into my fight against these bounty hunters. And what you see me doing here is just checking the different speeds on the various bounty hunters, because Jango gives them all plus 30 speed. I wanted to make sure, I'd already checked before the match had even started. I wanted to see if their bounty hunters were faster than my Stark and Imperial Troopers team. And, Stark needs to go first. He depends on that to be able to beat them. And so his 340 speed is pretty good, but a lot of Bosks nowadays are in the 330 range after the Jango leadership bonus. And so you never know, and I wanted to make sure that my opponent hadn't switched mods, after lock or whatever. So you always target the first, the most weak character out of all of them, and in that case it was Greedo. You focus him down, and then what I did here was I put Deathmark onto Bosk as soon as I could, and the AoEs from Snow just took him out like that. It wasn't a very resilient bounty hunter team, and it wasn't a challenge to beat that. So quick, easy 60 banners, and I was able to see what was in the back zone here, and I'd have complete information to be able to plan what teams and counters that I'd want to be able to use. So Carth Old Republic that aren't even fully geared, great news, and then a strange Dooku with Chase of all things team, so I have that to look forward to. So in most of my videos, I take a look at the different counters that I have available and kind of give my reasoning on what characters and teams that I wanted to take in these different circumstances. And, this was no exception. I, have them divided by zones. I need to be able to break through into ships first if possible. And, the biggest dilemma that I had going into this was I had 4 really strong counters available to be able to beat these teams, assuming that I used the right counters, of course. But I didn't really have a 5th, and, I guess I could have used Emperor Palpatine against Carth. I'd never done that before, just because I hadn't really ever had the opportunity to try it. And I could use Phoenix, of course, and Ewoks could beat him as well, but that carried a degree of risk. And I really wasn't sure which, how to allocate these different squads. And, my first iteration of these different teams to counter my opponent's remaining teams were pretty questionable. I really wasn't sure. Like, Jedi Revan into Dooku seems fine, but it seems like a little bit overkill, honestly. And the Carth Old Republic team, with Phoenix seemed extremely questionable, just because there's some RNG related stuff there, and I needed to win every single match on my first try. But Phoenix have done well for me in the past, so I figured maybe I'd pencil them in. General Grievous droids can be countered by Darth Revan, but again, I want to be able to max my banners if possible. In Qi'ra Nest against Traya, like, probably gonna lose most of my banners there. Just because they do AoEs, and I would absolutely win, but how could I hope to be able to get full banners? I wanted to max banners, like I said. And again, Nightsisters, I could have been cool and tried to be like Klesso and use my first order with Watt to be able to counter them, but their team was a little too fast for my appetite, and I just didn't feel the level of confidence that I probably should going into this match, and so I needed to shake things up just a little bit. So I decided to shake things up a little bit here. So, I decided to keep Jedi Revan, and Phoenix was penciled in against Carth. But my General Grievous droids, I wanted to try a new counter to them that I've been planning on for a while, and that would be Traya with Emperor Palpatine lead and Badstila. So my Darth Revan team would not have that Badstila available, and I wouldn't have an Emperor Palpatine team either. But I've been wanting to do that. My friend Solo Base 15, you can see, I'll link him in my video description. He's got his own YouTube channel, and he does a lot of crazy things with his teams, and he's been doing this with a high degree of success for a while, so wanted to try that out. I wanted to keep First Order doing what they do best against Qi'ra Nest, and then Nightsisters could probably be beat by Darth Revan even without Badstila. So my friend NLBL said it would just be a bloodbath, so I just decided to blindly trust him and go in on it. So that was what my thoughts were going into these final matches. We'll see what actually happened. So our goal here, moving into this match, is to, we want to be able to get through all these three teams, to be able to break through to ships first, just to see what's on the other side, and be able to plan accordingly. And I always try to do the matches with the most risk first. And so I figured with a new counter and a really high level, relic level, Grievous squad here, relic 7 on Grievous, relic 4 on B1 and B2, it was really going to be challenging anyways. So I jump in on this. Very first off, Badstila goes first because she has my arena mods. She's pretty quick, so she did her debuff. Palpatine did his awesome AoE, stunned a few people, and now we're just trying to, we put shock on B2 because B2 won't be, he's wanting to gain a bunch of turn meter, and if we can shock him, then he's not going to be able to do that. And then immediately I put isolate onto Magna Guard, and so he's not going to be able to taunt, no one's going to be able to taunt, and now the hope is that I'm going to be able to just kind of just spread the hits until Nihilus gets his annihilate ready, and after I do that, after I make that happen, then I'll hopefully be able to just annihilate Grievous without being hit by him even once, because frankly, even one hit from Relic 7 Grievous holds a pretty high degree of risk. And so here I'm just doing some damage as I can, trying to spread out the hits, as I said, and putting on debuffs, doing all this stuff, and I did manage to get the annihilate off. So pretty awesome result here. Now it's just clean up. There's no question that I'll be able to win this match, but the question is how many banners can I actually pull from it. It's going to be somewhere between 55 and 60, but I wasn't sure. So really, the only way to regrow protection at this point is Badstila has a method and Scion have methods, and then the rest of them, if I get hit by one AoE from B1 without having some bonus protection or something, then I'm sorry, out of luck. So took him out, and now we're just hitting these guys, literally kicking them while they're down or stunned or whatever. So I wasn't really sure how to handle Newt. Newt was going to revive immediately after I took him out the first time, and then he'd have full turn meter and be able to put some damage on me right away. So maybe I should have tried to wait until I had Annihilate from Nihilus ready, I think next time that's what I'm going to try, but as it stands, I'm getting a bunch of bonus turn meter, and so I'm I'm just getting enough turns that Newt isn't actually getting to go even after he revived. So he did get a turn, and immediately, I was relieved because he hit Palpatine, and Palpatine was already going to take the hit for no protection. So 57 banners on my first attempt here is great. I might have been able to get more than that. I'm not really sure, but 57 against a really high relic General Grievous squad is great. I might be able to get that with my Jedi Revan, but then again, I might not. At that relic level, you never know. So 57 is absolutely acceptable, and moving forward, that might be a counter that I employ quite often because I have Palpatine available now. I may as well use him in some capacity where it makes sense. But the most important thing was that I had managed to use Traya to be able to counter their strongest remaining team, and I still had my Darth Revan team available. So after a little bit of thinking, I decided to try some kind of weird hodgepodge here with Darth Revan and Watt, and I've taken out Malak, and you guys will see why in a little bit, but we've got a Nightsisters team that has half of their relics, and the rest of them are really fast and really well modded, and you can see how inexperienced I truly am with Watt. I'm reading all the different texts because I'm just not used to doing that. So I threw up immediately I threw up the shock just to be able to prevent their bonus turn meter from being generated, and be able to get my damage up. And then I put the taunting tech on Sith Trooper, and immediately after that, Watt, I have him at a pretty good speed, and so he put the weapons tech on HK, which meant that whenever HK got a kill, then they wouldn't be able to revive from it, with the exception of Zombie, of course, because Zombie has that limitless rule. So I took out Spirit, but because I used someone who wasn't HK, Spirit came back from Zombie's revive, so that was great. And you can see I'm just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants. I don't really know what I'm doing exactly, but so far it's been good. I took out Asajj with HK, so she's not coming back regardless. And now I'm trying to figure out how I can, get full banners or as close to it as possible. And, throwing grenades, doing stuff. And eventually I just realized, you can see Watt's life or health is in the middle there. And I didn't really know if I'd be able to revive it in time. We have Sith Trooper, who is also at negative health and protection, or negative as in he wasn't at full. And so eventually, I guess I could have messed around with this for a little bit, and I did. I killed Zombie a few times that I didn't necessarily need to, but in the end I decided I'd want to make sure that I don't actually lose either of those characters. So 57 banners is acceptable. It's fine. With a Darth Revan team that I use, normally if I use my full arena team, that team just goes down really fast. But without Badstila, I think 57 is pretty good, especially because they were pretty fast and they had a couple relics on them. It's a win, and it's a first-time hit, and it was somewhere between 55 and 60, so hard to really complain there. Next was my Qi'ra team against a relic nest, and it was kind of an interesting thing, I was thinking, because I just finished putting out a video on how to counter nest, but I didn't have any counters available that I could show you guys on how to take nest out when she has a relic, just because people are pretty intimidated by that, it seems like. And so I was excited to have this opportunity to show people how to counter nest with a relic nest. I think this one was relic 3, but at the same time it was well, if I lose, that's going to be pretty embarrassing. So I had that looming over me this entire match. So even though I've described it a lot of times in my other videos, I'll still talk about it a little bit. The strategy taking out this team, you always want to take out Vander Chewbacca first if you can. And that's just because he has if he gets prepared up, he has the ability to passively revive any scoundrel that you take out. And so, Stormtrooper Han kind of got in the way, and I was able to axe him before he, before Vander actually had prepared up. So that was great. And after that, though, I did take out Vander, and now, we come to this tricky situation where L3 is really tough to chew through. You don't want to have to take her out before you take everyone else out. But she's also really good at, if you do an AoE, if you hit her at all, she dispels debuffs on other characters on her team. And so, now we're left with this situation of if we stun Nest, then the L3 will eventually just get a turn and taunt, and then we'll have to hit her, and she'll dispel the stun on Nest anyways. And so I couldn't really do anything against Nest. I was just forced to try to reduce the L3 turns. We don't want her to get any of her different ability levels up, and so we're just hitting her, trying to take her out. Nest gets an AoE days off, of course, and now she has a pretty big pool of protection and health to deal with. That's one of the good things about having a relic Nest is she has a bigger health pool and she has more protection, and so we're trying to chew through it, and we got a 2-turn stun on her. She has no way to get through that, and so next time she takes a turn, she will stay stunned and her bonus protection will just go away. It'll just disappear, and I'll be able to get another big hit in. The other aspect here, and you can see I'm doing some of my specials. I'm using the First Order Officer special and the Fox special because those two guys are able to reduce turn meter on characters, and when you do that, Nest has tenacity down, so it doesn't matter how much tenacity she has. So, every time you try to do an effect on her, it essentially happens. And so what I'm doing, I'm trying to buy time to be able to get all of my health and protection up on almost all of my characters. And as always, the First Order Officer is lagging behind. He has, about half of his protection, and the only way he can really gain more protection is by gaining a buff of some sort, and the only reliable buff that I can get is from First Order Stormtrooper, and that's when he uses his special. And so that it was pretty slow going, and I decided Nest still had full health, and it's a pretty big health pool. So what I decided to do, and this is a pretty slow Nest too, so I decided to just do basics on her so I wouldn't be reducing her turn meter, and that way I'd be able to get some big hits in on her, hopefully, and be able to take her out before I timed out. And there was always the off chance that I would be able to get officers' health all the way up or protection all the way up. But at the end of the day, you want to win the match. Getting a timeout with only a second, with only a sliver of life on Enfys Nest left, that's another 20 banners, and you can't afford that in a match like this. You have to get as many as you can. And so I did finish it with about a minute remaining. Maybe I could have gotten Officer up to full protection, but that was gambling, and that was really not what I wanted to do. I needed a sure win. 59 is close enough to 60 that I'll take that almost every time anyways. So my opponent had put an Akbar team in with a Ghost next to his Falcon and Biggs, so a pretty easy prey. First, I wanted to take out squads just because I was kind of already in the groove. I had momentum going for me, and I know that I had planned on using Phoenix here, but instead wanted to try the new thing with Malak soloing them, and, so bummer for Phoenix, I guess.
Let's go! We need to get Evan out of here!
Can't we build something?
Hey, I'm Ben, but you can call me Betty, and I can build a spaceship. Watch this. Spaceship.
No, you can't. The skies are surrounded.
That's okay. I didn't really want to build a spaceship anyway. That's cool.
See, if Benny can be happy about not getting what he wants, so can Phoenix. The truth was that I didn't really feel that comfortable with this specific counter just because I'd never done it before, and I've seen a few videos where people go all the way down to the wire before they actually get the win. And my Darth Malak is, he has decent mods, and he's Relic 4, and this Phoenix, or rather this Old Republic team, is really nothing to write home to or about. They're gear 12, some of them are gear 11, and so they're probably not going to be able to kill me. But I've seen videos before where Malak just sits there and gets destroyed for a long time, and he's not able to actually get anything done. And at the end of the video, it's like either he times out or he has a couple seconds left and barely gets it. And so I didn't really want to have to deal with that madness, but My buddy Solo Base 15 swears by it. He says it's amazing, and I have seen a lot of other people do it pretty quick. So I decided to give it a try here, and if I failed, then I'd have someone to throw under the bus. So that was exciting at least. And the first part of the fight is really frustrating because they're just doing all these different hits to you, and you can't actually do any damage back. It's when you finally get your third stack of whatever that green buff is that Malak has that you actually start doing some damage, because on his basic, he starts giving healing immunity away. So Zalbar finally got healing immune and got taken out by Malak's big hits. And, we're just slowly cycling through here. Now that he's gone, Juhani's going to taunt every once in a while, then she'll stealth, so we can't actually do anything, and then she'll heal, potentially. And so we're just trying to take people out as we can. And honestly, there's not a ton of strategy involved. Like, you just go where the taunts allow you until you finally get your third stack, then you take out Zalbar. And after that, you also go where you're allowed to, because a lot of people are stealthing, between Mission and Juhani. And, as things progress, though, it becomes easier. So, there was never a point where I felt in danger at all. Like, there was one time I got stunned that I was like, oh, I'm mildly nervous, but then that wore off pretty quick. So 64 banners, pretty cool. I really want to try that again now. Hopefully that hasn't made me an addict, but 64, that balances the 57 that we got against the Nightsisters. So, average of over 60 banners between the two of those is pretty good, especially because we didn't have Badstila in either of those matches. So, good to go. Now we have Jedi Revan here against the Dooku team, and I decided to take Badstila here as the lead, because she gives them a ton of bonus protection. And frankly, I didn't see where the damage was on this team, except for against with Droidica. Droidica was the only one who posed any kind of credible threat to my health, and so I did take a full 5-man squad. That was probably overkill, but I wanted to make sure that I was going to be able to get the win here. And that being said, if I could get 60 banners, I'd be pretty happy. So I did a mark on Droidica, and it did almost no damage. And maybe that's in his kit to stop taking damage after the first hit or something. But I had assumed that I was just going to kill him right off the bat, because he's only gear 12, and Droidica is really not that resilient, without his shield. So, a couple more hits and I took him out. So I'll have to look at his kit. I apparently don't know it as well as I would like to, but I did take him out, and then after that, it was just trying to mitigate all the damage that I could. Chase they used to be so good, and now they're just so underwhelming. Like, you just don't have much that they can do. Like, there's not a team that they're on anymore, and that's kind of sad. But in this case, I was actually pretty happy, because you want to get free banners, and that's exactly what I got here. Baze is trying to dispel everyone, and that would have been nice if I hadn't had foresight already. And, Dooku's just hanging out there in the shadows, but he's not super high gear. And, I have a ton of bonus protection anyways. And so, he's doing his counters, he's doing his thing, but at this point, the battle's already over. Like, it's been over for a while. And full 60 banners, maybe I could have undersized it, but why take the chance? And Hermit Yoda was there just to be able to provide more healing and bonus protection if necessary. So took out all of the squads in a clean sweep, other than against General Skywalker. So far so good. Fleet is always just kind of an RNG fest and stuff. I really dislike it. I even went to the Fleet server and asked what composition they would use against this team, and they gave me a pretty eccentric one. And so I decided, before they gave that, I decided I needed to finish this battle anyways, because we were about to record our podcast, and I needed to just have closure on how I would do. So I entered this battle with my standard Fleet composition, because it had worked pretty well for me in the past against Millennium Falcon and Biggs plus Ghost. And honestly, the key here was to try to take out Ghost right away before the Phantom could come in and start messing things up and doing their weird taunt, now I'm taunting, now I'm not routine. So, take out Ghost, it's fairly squishy. My opponent's Phoenix were only gear 11, so pretty easy to take out. and you know, we're just doing as much damage as we could, and I just wanted to take out Falcon and all 3 of them before any reinforcements came in. That would have been so super nice. So I'm looking, and I decided to take Plo in here instead of my usual 5s, just because I wanted to get some health and protection regeneration, you know, going just in case the battle did end right there. And unfortunately, it did not. Phantom came in, almost killed Ahsoka, and so, you know, now we're just trying to finish everything off before another reinforcement comes in. And, you know, we really don't want Ahsoka to go out. We want to get as many banners as possible. And so I almost took out Millennium Falcon there. Sliver of health. Millennium Falcon came back, and, you know, he got a turn. Then another character came in, Wedge came in, and Ahsoka's almost dead again. I had the buff on her, so she came back. And so now I have Rex. I did take Rex here instead of, you know, other characters that I've taken in the past, just because he gives that additional protection regeneration, which is huge for banners, and that's something I'm going to be looking into more and more. But, you know, again, sliver of health on Falcon. I was looking for an opportunity to be able to regenerate health and protection. Didn't really come, so I just took him out, and 60 banners is fine against fleet. You know, you want more, obviously, but I got a one-shot with 60 banners. That's pretty good. So 1910 banners, that's actually a pretty solid score, especially considering General Skywalker had already taken out 20 of those banners. So I had to go to bed before my opponent made their attacks, and that's just fine. You know, 1910 is a pretty good score anyways, or at least it's decent. And if my opponent did fail even one attack, then it would mean that I'd probably be able to beat them, just because the rest of my squads are generally pretty good at stealing a banner here and there. But I just wasn't sure. My previous opponent was the first one to try my new defenses, and that same opponent is clearly a couple squads short of full roster, if you know what I mean. And so they weren't able to full clear, so I wasn't sure what to expect here. You know, I just hoped that I'd be able to get a defense and get the win. And as it turned out, when I did, they did stub their toe on a couple things, as I'll show you guys on my defenses here. And, you know, let's just jump into it. So the front zone, my Talzin squad with Baze, it actually got a defense. And I would love to know what team my opponent tried there. Obviously failed. My top zone had a bunch of decent teams in it, but they're also teams with pretty established counters, so I was just hoping that they stole banners, and hopefully they accomplished that. My ships got destroyed again, and I'm considering taking a worse fleet there so that I have some redundancy to be able to take out really strong squads. The back zone was the one that I was really excited about. So Jedi Training Ray got taken out first time, but my General Skywalker actually ended up getting 2 defenses and didn't actually get cleared. So, you know, in the end, I was able to stop my opponent from full clearing me, and I just love the idea that we both had General Skywalker. His was Relic 7, mine was only 6-star, Gear 11, and we both had 2 attacks on our General Skywalkers, and mine was the only one left alive. So, good times, really happy with that result.
Not bad.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Not too bad at all.
So I wanted to take a minute to look at the sloppiness ratio, just because I wanted to see how many banners my teams have been taking off of my opponents. And, you know, you kind of got to do a little bit of gymnastics just to be able to get to that point. You know, I want to take away the possibility of, you know, maybe my opponent was able to full clear me without using 2 different teams, and so you know, I want to take that under advisement. And, you know, that's the same for me. It's a little bit disingenuous on my end because I intended to 2-shot my opponent. So, you know, if I hadn't had a 2-shot, then I only dropped 7 banners total, and that's great. You know, to get to where they were at against my squads and everything, you know, and this doesn't take into consideration any failures against my General Skywalker squad. They dropped 47 total banners. However, you know, if you just assume, if we take into account that maybe they had the right right team to be able to counter me. Just didn't use it the first time. You know, we take away their one fail, which is 20 banners total, and they still dropped 27 total banners against me. I don't know if it was in ships, I don't know against what squads, but you know, dropping 27 banners is not very good efficiency, and I don't know yet if that's just my defense being extremely good and efficient, or if my opponents are just not very efficient players. I'm not sure, but you know, this kind of gives us some feedback on our defenses, and so I've been enjoying trying to do this, at least for my newer defenses, trying to see, you know, if they can be full cleared easily, then maybe I need to switch to something. But anyways, that's about it for me, guys. I'm in the finals next round, which is exciting, and you know, my finals opponent has a really great roster. That'll be a really interesting match. They do not have a R7 General Skywalker, which is wonderful, and I'm sure they're really glad that I won, because they don't have to face a R7 Skywalker either. So anyways, it'll be a good match. Stay tuned for that. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.